we should be switching gears now. So, coming back to our native land here, uh, Mark Carney has hired former BlackRock manager Mark Wiseman, co-founder of the Century Initiative, as an advisor. So, a guy who used to work at BlackRock and was the co-founder of an NGO is now an advisor to the now coronated Mark Carney, the prime minister de facto, the guy who cheated and rigged his own election, kicking 2/3 of liberal voters to coronate him to take over Trudeau's position. The Century Initiative is a lobby group which aims to use mass immigration to increase Canada's population to 100 million people. So these guys, along with BlackRock and George Soros and other NGOs, are solely responsible for lobbying Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party to have this mass immigration crisis. They're the ones that are orchestrating this. They are the ones demanding our government keep the doors open to flood in this country of mass migration of people that we have no accountability for. Even this guy says that it's a waste of time. Well, let's get into this. So, here is Mark Wiseman stating that immigration screening is a waste of time. This guy, the guy in the middle here, he's saying it's a waste of time to have proper immigration documents. It's a waste of time to have proper border security. It's a waste of time to figure out if people can come in legally or not. That's why we're in this situation. And now he is been hired on by Mark Carney. Mark Carney and him used to be part of the Century Initiative. They're part of the same NGOs. They work together with the WEF. They work together serving BlackRock and Brookfield. Mark Wiseman is a former BlackRock senior executive, now runs the lobby firm Century Initiative. So here's him openly stating this, that, hey, it's a waste of time to do the checks and balances on immigration as we pour more and more and more people in, and we don't have the resources to treat people. Not even our own people. We don't have enough to treat people that are legally here in Canada, and they want to pour in more people.
Part of the answer here is a private sector answer. Let the private sector.
So he says part of the answer here is a private sector answer. Meaning that corporations are pushing for mass migration. Why? Because then they can bring these people in, dangle a carrot in front of their nose, promise them a job and a house and everything, and exploit them for cheap labor. That's what Tim Hortons has done. That's what manufacturers have done. That's what mega corporations have been doing. That's what Walmart's been doing. They've been exploiting these people, allowing them to come in, dangle a carrot in front of their nose, saying, "Hey, if you come in and we'll get you through. We'll give you proper paperwork. Blah blah blah. We'll help you out, but we'll exploit you for cheap labor." And then we'll kick out the Canadian worker who may probably had union-based salary, kick him out to exploit the foreigner for cheap labor. This is insourcing. It used to be corporations would have to go outside the country to exploit people, but now they found a loophole.
Sector move to bring people in and facilitate them being able to do that. And a lot of the screening and other stuff that we do, frankly, is just bureaucracy. It's a waste of time. Let's let people in by.
It's bureaucracy. It's just a waste of time. You mean to find out if someone is convicted of a crime, if someone's part of a gang, if they're connected to doing money laundering or fentanyl, like what we have right now. Like mass migration coming in, connected to organized gangs that are causing a ruckus here in this country. Yeah, it's just a waste of time. It's bureaucracy. It almost sounds like Elon Musk stating that. That's just a waste of bureaucracy. This is people there sitting and reading documents and signing. That's a waste. Just let these people in, roam around, let them do whatever they want. Then we'll figure out if they're okay or not.
By and large, and if we have to do the screening ex post, that's fine. I can tell you, bad guys and bad women probably find their way into this country through means other than applying through permanent residency.
That is why it's important to deal with border security. That is why Trump made those tariff threats. That's why he pointed out explicitly to our Canadian politicians that you have to deal with the border. You have to deal with the border crisis. You have to deal with fentanyl. Otherwise, it's going to overrun your country and it's going to affect my people. So I don't want it to affect my people here in America. So Canada, you better smarten up. That's exactly why we're in this situation. People forget that. People want to memory hold that. Politicians want you to memory hold that. They want to tell you that Trump is a bad guy. Trump is this guy that's going to take over his sovereignty. Well, what do you think this is? You have BlackRock executives at the helm of Parliament. You have a central banker that appeared out of nowhere who became prime minister. Our sovereignty was gone years ago, folks. Years ago. Way before Donald Trump was ever involved. But they're using the threat of Trump to their advantage. Because now, it's okay to get a BlackRock exec. It's okay to have Mark Carney. It's okay that nothing's going to change. Everything's going to get worse for Canada. Because it's anything to stop Trump. Anything to stop Trump.
Like, let's just face that, right? So, we just need to sort of take this on as a challenge and a problem, have KPIs, and then partner with the private sector. I mean, look at this anachronistic way of these labor market opinions, those who've tried to hire somebody from outside the country to do a job. I mean, it's crazy. Guess what? A Canadian firm wants to hire somebody from outside the country. They've identified them, they interviewed them, they want to pay them, and that individual is going to be taxed in Canada. Approved. What's that?
So there's your loophole. There's the loophole. Hey, if someone comes in and wants to get a job and they're willing to work, just approve them. They're willing to work cheap. I don't care. I'll approve them. I'll guarantee them a visa. Guarantee them. And more Canadian corporations that want to lecture you about buying Canada, buying Canadian goods, are hiring immigrants, hiring people outside the country, hiring foreigners for cheap labor. Because public-private relationship, private-public partnership allows them to do this. This is their little gimmick, their little loophole that they're able to do this. Oh, if we just open the floodgates, tell people that are a bunch of migrants and asylum seekers and they have to, okay, then, Walmart will come in and hire these people. Congratulations, we created jobs. We created a bunch of jobs. It just went all to foreigners. Canadians are still screwed. And that's who they hired as an advisor. Here's global news. Influential liberal advisors want Canada's population to triple by 2100. That's what this lobby firm is about. They want to triple the amount of people in Canada. But are they initializing any, increases in services? Does that mean we got to put more towards healthcare, infrastructure, housing? I didn't hear anything about that. But they want to bring in more people so that corporations can hire them for cheap labor. That's all I heard. And why would Mark Carney hire this guy? Because they work together. Mark Carney was part of this Century Initiative. There it is. Mark Carney, chair of Brookfield Asset Management and head of transition investing. Mark Wiseman, senior advisor and chairman of Canada Lazard and senior advisor, Boston Consulting Group. So, amazing how globalists unite together and are such great partners in corrupting further this country, the further desecration of Canada. And people still want to lecture me that Trump's the problem. Trump wants to turn this into a 51st state. He's taking away their sovereignty. Our sovereignty is already gone. Our sovereignty is disappearing. And if you want to remain Canada away from Trump or a globalist, then Canadians need to react to this. Canadians need to understand that this is going on whether Trump was president or not. This is happening right under your nose. Here's CBC Watcher. This is Mark Wiseman, co-founder of the Century Initiative, 100 million Canadians by 2100. The other co-founder is Don Barton, but you won't find him anywhere on the CI website. He got scrubbed. Suspicious. He and Barton convinced liberals that Canada needs to open the floodgates on immigration, and liberals oblige. He seems angered that some people blamed the Century Initiative for Canada's mass immigration problems. Gee, you think? You think? When you openly state that it's a waste of time, it's bureaucracy, that we do checks and balances of people entering the country, and you say that on camera in front of people, that they're not going to hold you accountable for the mass immigration crisis? In fact, Century Initiative itself has come under fire for its work, and its near unanimous support for immigration that used to exist in our country is under threat. So, we're not against immigration. I just want to make this clear. I support immigrants. You know, we all come from somewhere. I support immigration. I support legal immigration. And we had that. We had a checks and balances of people entering this country before this happened, before this takeover, before you got a schmuck like Mark Wiseman announcing that it's a waste of time to have proper border security. It's a waste of bureaucracy. Mark Wiseman is now the bagman for financing the Carney Liberal leadership campaign. So Mark Wiseman was responsible for financing Mark Carney's coronation. Now you know why he's got hand-selected and media approval to become an advisor. And here's him again. There's Mark Wiseman announcing that, yeah, we have to have all this migration to increase Canada's population, all because there's not enough workers. There's not enough young people to go and do work. There's not enough people are making babies. That's the excuse they always like to make. Oh, not enough young people are making babies. That's not what's happening. It's a replacement. Now you kind of get where Tucker Carlson had coined the phrase the Great Replacement Theory. And people immediately called that racist. Well, what else would you call this? What else would you call this?
Well, good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here. As many of you know, I helped found the Century Initiative over a decade ago, with the belief that the right approach to growth, with that approach, Canada could enhance its economic strength and resilience, and ultimately increase prosperity for all Canadians.
And how's that working out right now? How's that working out right now? Our economy is collapsing. We have a fentanyl crisis. We have an organized crime syndicate crisis. We don't have enough housing for people. We're putting immigrants into abandoned arenas. We're now transforming schools into shelters for these people. How do you think it's beneficial to the Canadian economy? How's it beneficial for the majority of Canadians?
In recent years, the conversation around population growth, and particularly immigration, has become more prominent, and in the last year, more divisive than we could have anticipated. While there is still broad agreement that Canada must grow its population, including through immigration, recent challenges from an influx of temporary foreign workers and international students, and I'll come back to that specifically, has put massive pressure on our infrastructure and housing resources.
So then why are you pushing for this mass migration instead of, I don't know, investing more into building housing, investing more into our GDP, investing more into our economy, that, hey, maybe Canadians like myself and my demographic could maybe potentially start raising more and more families. Because as you say, we need to increase the population. There's not enough people, younger people, to do the work. As the boomer generation and Generation X get older and older, we don't have enough people to replace that. So why wouldn't you put incentive on producing more in Canada and investing more in Canada so that younger people can start families? Because it's not about that. It's about cheap labor for the private sector. It's about a mass influx of people, that we have a huge amount of population and such a dense population that's easier to control. That's one of the many reasons why they're doing mass migration. And that's not just me saying that. Those are reports by George Soros in his open letter to European nations and Western countries to do this. So now, Mark Carney is at that same event that you just saw there, thanking Mark Wiseman, saying thank you for his contribution with the Century Initiative. It's the arsonists having a conference to discuss how to put out the immigration fire. Canada has been in a liberal included depression, masked by mass low-wage immigration. That's exactly what's happening. They're using inclusion. They're using refugee status. They're using and manipulating these people, which, again, I don't put the blame on immigrants because they're caught in this trap as much as we are. But they're abusing them to advance their agenda to get more and more potential low-wage workers. So we can go after union-based workers. So we can go after the ordinary Canadian worker. That's the public-private position of this. And that's who's coordinating with this. And now Mark Carney is thanking this guy.
To this mess, and how do you think we can get out?
Okay. Well, first, let me thank the Globe and Mark Wiseman, Century Initiative, everyone for this very timely discussion. And look, you can choose whatever word you want to describe it. A sense of urgency and determination must be brought to address all these issues. Let me just say 2 words of context and then get to where we can go. The first is, it's very much, and I think everyone in the room and beyond would recognize it's part of our culture to welcome newcomers to build and realize the promise of Canada. All my grandparents were immigrants to Canada. They came here for a better life. They worked hard through the Depression, booms and busts, lived in remote communities, and,
But there was checks and balances in hindsight of that. Yes, we are an open country. Yes, we welcome newcomers into the country. Again, I'm not against immigration. I'm not against people that come in legally and want to seek a prosperous life here in Canada. But there has to be a system in place, because otherwise, we get into this mess that we're dealing with right now. If we don't have the checks and balances, you don't have a country. You don't have security. You don't have sovereignty. If you don't have checks and balances to figure out who's coming in and for what reason, then Canada's no longer a country. It's just an asset of Brookfield management, which is probably what Mark Carney already thinks about this. Oh, it's just another company. It's not a country. I don't have to listen to people. I don't have to take answers from journalists that are holding me accountable. What do they think I am, a politician? But here's the second reason.
Send their
He
kids to
says.
school and got health care, and each generation progressed from there. Secondly, just to expand a bit, I did catch Mark's punchy introduction on the demographic challenge. When I entered the workforce, admittedly in the late 1980s, the median age of Canadians was less than 30. So half above, a half below. Now it's over 40. And so that keeps climbing. That's one of many illustrations of the demographic challenge. It'll climb as the baby boomers age and retire. And we need younger immigrants in part of the solution to offset that, keep our economy strong, pay for social services.
So you need younger people to replace the older generation that's going to retire off. Instead of having an initiative to, I don't know, maybe some more Canadians can have families and produce children, instead of pointing the finger at them and saying that they're lazy and incompetent to have a family, it's their own fault. Maybe put an initiative out there so they can raise a family, so they can buy a home, so they can start and actually raise more and more potential Canadian workers, instead of this mess that we're in right now. But no, they want younger immigrants to flood this country in so they can use for cheap labor. That's the whole perspective of this. Cheap labor, influx our country with more migrants, so there's chaos on the streets, and you can control an entire bigger population through that. That's the whole perspective of this. So, the Bureau, which is Sam Cooper, investigative journalist, I highly recommend people check out his work, wrote this up. This is back in February. This is before Mark Carney entered himself as Prime Minister. It says the Carney-Trudeau nexus, how financial elites from Davos to Beijing are shaping Canada's next federal election. As Canada braces for a leadership change with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau poised to step down, Mark Carney emerging as a successor, and speculation mounting over a snap election as early as March, the defining question, by the way, they're announcing Sunday of announcing a possible election. Just thought I'd throw that on there. Sunday, apparently when they're announcing the date for an upcoming election. The defining question of Carney's campaign is whether he will govern differently from the deeply unpopular Trudeau. Carney's camp insists he will, particularly on carbon reduction and immigration, issues that polls suggest have alienated a majority of Canadians. And he's not changing on either. He's not changing on either. Carbon taxes aren't going away, and mass migration isn't going to go away. Because now you just hired on this schmuck. Yet a closer examination of Carney's elite network, guided by the principle that long-standing relationships of trust and shared financial interests will shape governance, reveals a constellation of global influencers deeply tied to the World Economic Forum and China's trade and finance arms, particularly the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. At its core, this network of remarkable figures whose stated goals center on consolidating financial powers across borders to coordinate carbon reduction policies and progressive social outcomes includes not just Carney and Trudeau, but also former Canadian ambassador to China Dominic Barton, Trudeau campaign backers Mark Wiseman and Gerald Butts, and Jing Lincoln, reportedly a senior Chinese Communist Party operative. Carney's influence also appears to extend into Canada's state broadcaster. Former Power and Politics host Evan Solomon, who works in a consultancy with Carney's wife and Gerald Butts, in 2015 was embroiled in an art dealing scandal involving Carney, whom he referred to as the guy. In a leaked email, Solomon reportedly wrote, next year in terms of the guy will be very interesting. He has access to the highest power network in the world. And yet Trump is the problem. Trump is the one threatening national security. For Canadian voters, understanding the intricate plutocratic web surrounding Trudeau and Carney is not an academic exercise. It offers a glimpse into the focus lining up to shape the nation's climate, trade, and social policies. While the World Economic Forum has become a lightning rod for both criticism and political polarization, opponents accuse it of fostering undemocratic policy making, while defenders dismiss such concerns as conspiracy theories. An objective, network-based analysis of its ties to Beijing's financial arms and the key figures in Carney's orbit suggests a well-defined pattern of shared interests. These interests are likely to drive Canadian governance under Carney, unless he makes the illogical decision to sever ties with the power networks and public-private partnerships that have defined his ascent. So to all the people out there that think that Trump is going to take away your sovereignty and make Canada the 51st state, and America is going to storm in and dissolve Canada, it's already happened. Already happened. Who took control of Canada? The WEF, the NGOs, Brookfield. All these key power figures have corroded this nation. And nobody says a word about this. No one really says a word about this. The CBC tried, and Mark Carney basically screamed at them. Mark Carney, who was only asked about his Brookfield assets being an applied trust, accountable to that, he freaked out at the journalists. And his supporters are now threatening to fire one of the journalists at CBC. The same people that get angry at Pierre Poilievre for saying to defund the CBC. They want to fire people that have had a second of journalistic integrity to hold Mark Carney accountable. This is a complete takeover of Canada. A complete takeover of Canada. Not with Trump, not with America, but with good old New World Order tactics from the WEF, from BlackRock, from all these NGOs, from foreign nationals, from high top bankers, this power network that's just completely corroded this nation. Remember, Justin Trudeau said we were going to be a post-nationalist country, meaning that Canada is no longer a country. Canada is just this guy's company. Canada's just a part of his assets in the long lineup of asset firms. So here, Mark Carney, tied to the Century Initiative, founded by a BlackRock executive, pushing for 100 million people in Canada. That's who you got, ladies and gentlemen. That's who people are trying to support. That's who's leading the polls. Because Pierre Poilievre, instead of calling this out as clear as day, would rather side with the same liberal gimmick and call out Donald Trump. That's why he's losing. That's why this is such a farce. And that's why this is so laughable to hear people complain about Trump taking our sovereignty when our sovereignty is already disintegrated because of people like Mark Carney.